Hey, so in this video, we will be looking at ways we can save data into the Django using the Django ORM. The first thing we will be looking at is inserting a single record. For example, I want to insert a single post using just a single model class, and that's it. There is two ways as far as I know, and we will see the difference between the two ways. And the second thing, we will see how we can insert one-to-many relationship and how we can optimize inserting that by minimizing the number of queries. The third way, we will see how we can actually store many-to-many relationship. Also, we will try to optimize the queries by minimizing the number of queries to store these like relationship. And yeah, that's pretty much, this is the intro. Now, to make things like fast, the simple things I just wrote here so I can just go through it very quickly. The first thing is inserting a single record. There is two ways. Way one is calling the, or yeah, the object name, the class model name, post.objects in our case, .create, give it the body, give it the user ID. Usually the user ID will come from the, for example, the JWT will be decoded from the headers. Now we will get the user ID. But in our case, this is just a simple Django command, so we can run and test. I'll just wrote this function that will get the last user that got registered or got inserted in our database. We will get the ID and use that. So this now new post will, or sorry, the create function, this one will immediately create the post record and will put it into the database, get all the column values and create an instance from the post from it. And in my case, I called it a new post. Okay, so new post.id, this will be the ID generated from the auto increment field from the database. Basic stuff, right? But something here worth mentioning, this method refresh from DB. Let's imagine for some case, or you have a case that maybe the body of the request, the body of the post somehow will be changed in another part of your app. And when you create an instance in any model, all the field or the columns will be actually cached inside the instance, the column values. So each time I access the post, no matter like how many times I access it, I will get the body value from the cache, not from the database. So this will run only one query, and each time I try to access anything, no queries will be run again. I already have them in the cache, in the like instance values, in the instance value, right? In that object, for example. Yeah. But if I need to refetch the data from the database again, I'm just gonna call refresh from DB. That will get the values, add them again in the instance, and that's it. So this is the way one. This is a lot of the like cases you will use just these lines, and that's it. Now here, way two is to create an instance directly from the class. You won't call the create function. You will just call the post like constructor function, and that's it. Here you want to query the database, you want to create any like some sort of SQL statement. You will just create an instance, normal Python class instance. Now if you try to, the thing here to notice, if you try to access the ID, it will be none because the ID is auto incremented ID, right? So it will be none. After you call the save method, the ID will exist now, and like that's it. This is the main difference between the two ways. And I showed you this because in the next examples we will be using this way. Yeah. Now let's actually go to the second example, which is one-to-many relationship and how we can do that. So I have here an example which is called the create user and insert photos. We will have like, I'm using faker here as you can see as a property in the command class. So I've generated first name, last name, and email. I'm using the user. This is how I populated the username, the email, last name, and first name. Now this will be a single query. We will insert a user record into the database. Now we need to add the password. So I just thought I will show you that. We will call the set password method on the user instance. This will go and update the user record. And these are like here two queries, right? Of course, like after you call the set password, the save will actually go update the database. So all of these like two queries. Now let's say we have an endpoint that you will send an entity alongside an array of other entities, which represents one-to-many relationship. in our example, maybe it's not realistic, but in our example, we have an endpoint that will receive a user instance and an array of posts, and we need to create all of that immediately into our database by trying to minimize the number of queries. So this is the idea here. Now, if you think about it, let's say we need 10 posts for each user. I have here this function create post, and I'm passing to it the user instance. So let's say now for underscore, which means I don't care about this variable, you can just call it I if you want. In range 10, these are the 10 posts. I need to create 10 posts, right? So I'm gonna loop 10 times. I'm gonna say post.objects.create, and I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm just gonna copy paste something really quick. So the body will be equal to self.faker.paragraph. This will just generate a paragraph. I have faker here and it's imported here. Okay. And the user ID will be the current user ID passed. And this is it. This actually works. But let's see the queries that will actually be run. We can actually, like, there is a Django, or not Django, there is a debug toolbar command. Yeah, I just actually was Googling it. It's this one. Or, yeah, this one, sorry. So you'll type python manage debug shell, and every ORM code that you write in that shell, it will open. You will see it like, you'll see the SQL logged in front of you. So this is a way to check the SQL statements, but I found a better way in our example, or in our, yeah, in my example. So if you go to the settings and just add this code. I'm not quite, I'm not quite sure understand everything about it. I just found it online, to be honest. But this will allow us to see the queries, and I don't recommend doing this like maybe in production. Just do it locally. Maybe I will do video on like logging, but this is it for now. Just copy paste this, put it in your settings. You will see every query is logged here in the terminal. There is a link in the description for the repo. You can check this out and copy it. So let's actually run this. Since it's a command, since it's a Django command file, I can just type python manage and the name of the file. Remember to activate your virtual environment. So I will run it. We will see here we have the insert into users. This is creating a user. This is updating the user after we created the password, the encrypted password. Now we have insert 10 times. It's this, like, we are inserting a post for this user 10 times, which is this one. So this is not that great, and there is a better like performance-wise way, which is the bulk create function. So what we need to do is to create 10 post instances without calling the create, without creating an actual records in the database. And let's do that. I'm just gonna save some time. I'll do this. So posts will be equal to 10 instances by creating the post. This is why I showed you this example here, because in here we did not like insert into the database, right? I'm just creating 10 instances, post instances, and storing them into this list. And now I can just simply type post.objects.bulk create. And by the way, we have bulk update. I might create a video about it, which is very interesting. I think they added it in 2.2 in Django. But yeah, anyway, just add the posts. This should be it. Let's now actually run the command and see how many queries we run. So it should be 3. We have this insert into user, we have the update user, and we have insert into like the post, all of these values, which are the 10. So only 3 queries. This is much better. However, so we are done with the one-to-many example. However, there is something you need to notice about the bulk create, or to remember, sorry. I think Django bulk create. Sorry about this. I thought I already opened it here, but no. So bulk, yeah, this one, it's here. I will put a link in the description so you can access it very fast. So this has number of stuff that you should remember. The model save method will not be called, and the pre-save and post-save signals will not be sent. So first thing, signals in the Django RM is the equivalent of the database triggers, but it will work on the app layer, on the ORM layer. So anything saved using the Django RM, these pre-save and post-save signals will be called on that instance, okay? In the case of create bulk, it won't be called. So that's something very important to remember. If you have, like example, you wanna have like monitor a specific model being created and inserted into the database. If you use bulk insert, you won't be able to do that. Maybe that's, I think, one of the downsides of the Django RM. Maybe in some cases you might want to switch to database trigger and not like signals on the RM. But maybe that's a discussion or a video in another time. But just keep in mind that. Another thing that is very important, the model's primary key is an auto field. By default, each model you create, it will have ID equal to auto field, and this is like an auto incremented primary key column. Okay, so the primary key attribute can only be retrieved on a certain databases, currently Postgres and MariaDB. So any other databases, the bulky create will return actually, or in all databases, the bulky create will return an array of instances. But only in Postgres and MySQL and MariaDB, we will have the IDs in these instances, which is very interesting. And to show, since we are using SQLite, so these, like we have now posts from DB. Now, if you try to print them, you will see that they don't have an ID inside of them. Even though they are currently on the database, we don't get the IDs, which is, you could argue it's bad, but that's it. You will only get the ID if you are on Postgres or MariaDB. This is what I meant. So let's actually try to do it. Let's first comment this out. You will see we have an array of posts, but all of them are none. None means this is the ID, okay? Just to make it more clear, for p in posts in DB, from DB, sorry, p.id. Now you'll see an array of nones, as you can see. So yeah, that's something to remember, which is very interesting. Yeah, so we minimize the number of queries in the one-to-many relationship. We talked about bulky create and the things that you should notice about it. Let's now talk about many-to-many. Oops, I should not showed you that. Sorry. Let's talk about the many-to-many relationship and how we can populate it. So first thing, let's imagine an endpoint receiving an entity. In our case, it will be the user. It might not be realistic that we will accept the user like that, but let's say, just for the sake of this example, we have an entity called user. We will accept it. Alongside the properties or the body of the request, we have an array of posts, which means this user have one-to-many relationship with the post. So we need to create each post for this user. And each post also containing another property called categories. These are the categories IDs that the user selected on the front end. So if you remember in our, let me show you the ER diagram we had. Close everything. So this is the ER diagram. Come on. Can you see it? Yeah. So we have the post, we have the category post. This is the table that represents the relationship. And this will have a relationship with the category. Okay. The category is these. So we have general JavaScript, Python, Ruby, only these. And the user on the front end will say, hey, I created this post. The categories are JavaScript, Python, Ruby. That's what the UI will be. But behind the scenes, the front end should send you the IDs of these categories so you can link them for this post in the many-to-many table, right? Which is the post category post, this table. It's usually called junction table. So yeah. Now to do this, let's imagine this is like we have user, it's an object, and inside of it we have posts, and each post somewhere we have the categories, which is an array of IDs. Okay, so we need to insert all of that data. We have one-to-many, now then many-to-many, as little queries as possible, with as little queries as possible. Okay, I hope it's clear and I'm not making like things confusing. So since this is a Django command, we can't use the request object, right? So I'm gonna simulate a bunch of stuff. So first thing, let's say, um, or let me just show you the previous code. We have this create and insert posts function. It will be called from the handle, and it will basically at the end create the user. These are the two queries we already seen. Then create the posts. Okay. And here I'm gonna say for underscore in range 10. I need to create 10 posts, and for each post I need to create categories. So if you think about it, I can create bulk or use the bulky create function to create a bunch of posts, right? But I don't have the ID. So it makes sense that Django from the instance can't link categories to it because I don't have the ID in the instance. And actually that's the reason in the documentation it says create bulk, it does not work with many-to-many relationships. And based on my observation, this is the reason, because it does not retain the IDs, so it can't actually link them. So or maybe that's one of the reasons. Maybe there is other, because it says it retains the IDs in Postgres and MariaDB. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. I still believe that. So you can't use bulky create. So I can't create a bunch of posts, and maybe for each post I'm gonna add here like the category. Let's say here an array of categories. So this will actually not work in Django with the create, with the bulky create, okay? So you are kind of forced to loop over like how many posts you want to create. Let's say the user submitted 10 posts, you will loop over them, create all of them, so a single query for each one. Then you need to create the queries that links the categories with the post in the categories post relationship, right? Relationship table. So that's basically the idea. So let's first actually create these posts. So p will of type of post will be equal to post dot objects dot create, and I'm gonna pass like the body and the user ID, and let's just copy stuff from here. Okay. Now let's say inside each post in the body of the request we have a bunch of categories IDs, right? It makes sense that you will send a bunch of IDs for the categories. So I'm gonna just copy 36 and 69, and I will call them category IDs. Now we need to somehow link this post with these two category IDs. Let's say, for example, each post we have these two IDs attached to it. I hope this makes sense. So one way to do it is to call the current post instance dot categories dot. We have here two options. We have dot to create. This will actually create categories in the categories table and link them in the categories post relationship table. Okay. But since we already defined the categories and have the IDs, we will call set. This will just set the relationship between them. And we can give it the categories IDs. And this will actually go and do it. And this is fine. And remember, we called the create function because because the bulky create won't work with many-to-many relationships. So if we did this after bulky create, maybe looping over the post returns from the DB, this won't work. So let's actually try to run this and see how many queries and see if we can actually optimize this a little bit more, because this will actually throw a lot of queries. Let's return this. Now Python manage. And as you can see, this is a lot of queries. So we have insert into user and update into user. That's fine. Now we have select from post category post. Not sure why Django does this, but I have a theory that it tries to check for uniqueness. Not sure why it does that, because we have this unique together. I really don't like why it does this. Maybe they have a good reason. Now we have this insert into category post. This will actually go and add the relationship, and this is like these two queries will happen each time here. As you can see, it will keep happening 10 times. So two queries set into post and select, or sorry, we have it's kind of hard to read. So we have 3 queries each time. We have select from category, and we have select post category post. This is for checking for uniqueness, and this is, I think Django will try to check if this category actually exists. Yeah, so 4 queries. Sorry, my bad. And then we have the insert into post category. Yeah, so we have insert into post, insert into category post, select from categories, and select from category post. Maybe, yeah, let's just I'm sorry, let's just use one. Yeah, well, I'm gonna create just a single one and see how many queries we have. So we have insert into user, update into user, and they will end here. Now insert into post, then we have the select category from category. Now we have select from post categories. Now then we have insert into post categories. So we have 4 queries just to insert a post, link it with these 2 categories. So it makes sense we only have 2, but we have 4. We can actually do much better. So if you remember, I did not rely on Django to create my junction table, my relationship table, my many-to-many relationship table, right? I created one. I told it, hey, use this one to represent the relationship. And if you think about it from a different perspective, all many-to-many relationship, I really encourage you to always think like this. All many-to-many relationship are just one-to-many relationship, but like from a different angle. So we have many-to-many between the post and the categories, right? But to achieve this, we will create a third table, and this table will have a relationship one-to-many between the 2 other tables, right? So in the current example, the category post model have one-to-many relationship with the post, or to make it clearer, the post table have one-to-many relationship with the category post table, and the categories table have one-to-many relationship with the categories post table. Okay, so we are, if you think about it, like the way I said it, we are dealing with one-to-many relationship. So what we can do here, since we can use like bulky create in one-to-many but not many-to-many, we can actually deal with this many-to-many relationship as one-to-many, right? I hope it's clear. It makes sense to me. So what we can do is the following. So I can say, hey, these are the categories IDs that the user posted, right? In the post body, for example. This is the categories that I need to create. I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna say, hey, the current post, go to the categories, go to the through property there. I think this will reference this one here. So through, it will give us a pointer to the category post. This is what this will do. And here we can give it, hey, the post ID will be equal to the current post.id. Now the category ID will be equal, we need like to loop over the categories, right? So I'm gonna loop now for c underscore id and categories id. I'm just gonna put this one here. So I'm creating an instances, as you can see. I'm not calling through.objects.create this. If I did this, this will create an instance. This will be a query for each category, which is very bad. I just need to create an instance, a plain Python instance. Okay. Now I have a data of instances. What I can say, p.categories dot through dot objects dot bulk create, and pass with the data, which is an array. Through will point to the category post table, right? So through is just like, now the data is an array of instances from the category post model, and that's it. Now if we use this, let's actually see how many queries this will do. So we have insert into user, and we should have the update into user, and we have insert into the post, and we have insert into post categories. So the first 2 we will always ignore them, right? Before we had 6 queries, 2 for the users and 4 for only inserting a post and adding 2 relationships to it. We had 4 queries. Now here we only have 2 queries. Inserting into the post, this always will gonna exist, so we can ignore it. But inserting the relationship, instead of being in the previous example, 3, if we ignore the post, here we have only 1. So insert into post category, the data that are here, these two, like 63 and 69, as you can see here, and you can find it somewhere. It's really hard to look, but yeah, it's really good. So we minimize the number of queries. I really hope this is clear. But to make this even clearer, just import this table. Except like you don't need to access this like through properties. It's kind of confusing. So you can just replace these two with this, and this is totally fine. This is exactly the same, and this is, in my opinion, much clearer, and it's better for the performance. I'm writing less queries. I'm contacting the database much less than the previous time. So the same thing, two queries for the user, query for setting the post, and only single query for establishing the many-to-many relationship. Because again, if you think about it, many-to-many relationships in the ORMs is just, or in database in general, is just one-to-many relationship between three tables. So the post, let's look at it in the category in the ER diagram. The category, the post category, which is the junction table, have a one-to-many relationship with the categories. At the same time, it have one-to-many relationship with the posts. And here it makes much more sense, right? So it's just one-to-many relationship, but from a different angle. This is how I think about it. So yeah, I really, really hope this is very useful, or at least somehow useful to you, this way of thinking. Yeah, so this is it. Now the last thing, which is very important, the transactions. So let's imagine you are gonna connect to the database, run a bunch of queries, bunch of deletes, updates, inserts, but one of these queries failed. It makes sense sometimes that I won't commit the other changes that, or the previous changes I did in case some of them failed, right? So in our case, if I created the user, then went and created the posts, then went and created the categories, if any error happened in the categories, I want the previous changes to be removed from the database, right? Maybe in this example does not make sense, but I think you can find a use case from your job that matches what I said. If I'm gonna execute a bunch of queries, one of them failed, roll everything back. I don't need these changes to be committed to the database. Now to do this in Django ORM, which is very nice, it's really simple. I will do a separate video about, but I thought we have like a perfect chance to give you an introduction about it. So from django.db import transaction. This is called transaction if you want to learn more about it until I create a video. So you will go and decorate any function to it. So now anything or any queries caused by any like other functions or this function called, so anything now we will be doing, if any error happened while executing this like this function, since I like for example decorated this handle function, right? So anything executed under it, if any error happened, any query executed like after calling this decorator will be completely rolled back if there is an error. To test this, let's come here and create a post with a body called my name. Okay, now let's actually go and run this like command, which will not provide, which will not throw any error, right? It's fine, it's run. Let's actually go to the posts data, and let's go to the last like table, the last column. We should see this one, 1410, which is the post that I just created, right? Let's now throw an arrow. It does not matter. So throw, and after I created the post, okay? Or raise, sorry, raise any error you want. So I'm gonna use key error. And I have this the atomic transaction decorator here. So if everything I said previously is right, we should not see a post with an ID 1411, right? So let's actually test that. The error is fine. I throw it, right? So let's actually refresh. We won't actually see it. I think what? Yeah, we won't see it. Sorry, my bad. But it's just like it keeps growing up, but we won't see a post with 1411. To just do it again to make sure. Yeah, I'm not like. Yeah, we won't see it. I just like somehow it keeps scrolling up, but I think you got the idea. We did not have any new. I can't type refresh as much as I can. We don't have any new post, which means if all the changes got rolled back because we faced an error. So yeah, that's a small introduction for like, atomic transactions. Usually we link these with HTTP request. If any error happened in the current HTTP request sent to Django, roll everything back. This is how we usually do it. I'm gonna do a video about that. So yeah, I really hope this was useful in any way whatsoever, and bye.